All right. Great.
Yeah, I'm not used to not seeing your side profile. So this is why I created a side profile too.
This is because I'm in the office with messy desk. And boy, is it messy, but I don't care anymore. I'm barely hanging in here. And I got.
Right.
So I think we have everybody. We don't, I wish we had.
Yeah,
more.
we can.
All right, okay, so I'm Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President, and I want to thank everyone for once again joining us. You're always welcome to invite more people because this is such a great wealth of information. So feel free to invite your friends for next Tuesday. But I want to say that we are winding down the vaccine task force. But I certainly want to, and we'll be talking more about some of the budget issues that are very, very prevalent, particularly after the city council and the mayor finished the budget. But in terms of the vaccine, which is what we're talking about today, of course, they're related. I think we should be pleased about the numbers, but we're always looking to make sure that the future looks good also. But there were in the state, not the city, 346 hospitalizations. The number of those in the ICU went below 100. There were 3 deaths in the state yesterday, and I always think about those people because I know what that's like. Manhattan's COVID positivity rate was 0.32%, which is slightly lower than the city and the state. But there's still 100 to 200 people in the state testing positive every single day. And of course, the Delta variety is in the papers, on the news, and is certainly on everyone's mind. In terms of New York State vaccines and who has been vaccinated, it's about 70% who've gotten 1 shot. Again, this is the state, and in the city, it's closer to 50%. So we have a lot of work to do. And the papers today were full of everybody who wants to get a shot is done. And those are those left or those who need to be convinced. Some of the bigger state sites have closed, and some of the city sites, Ford Foundation, where I went for my 2nd shot, actually has closed. But there are sites that are open, and pharmacies have vaccines. Obviously, doctors have vaccines. And to the credit of the city is scheduling more in-home vaccinations. At NYCHA, anyone 12 years or older can schedule an in-home vaccination. And it seems that, who knows, but according to the news and the press, vaccines stay effective for some time. We don't know, but possibly for multiple years. I have to say, I just don't understand why people don't get the vaccine. I was terrible, as you know, on the flu shots. I never got a flu shot, and I got screamed at. But I don't understand not getting the vaccine. We really have wonderful, wonderful speakers today. One person, both people I know somewhat, but Dr. El Sadir, she has been so many times with us. She runs the Pandemic Research Center that Columbia is seeking to open. At least she's the one who will be running it. And I want to say she's come at least 3 times on this particular Zoom. And then thanks to Trisha, she came on that Columbia University ran during the literally middle of the pandemic. And she was like hanging on the edge of your chair with her amazing knowledge. She's going to talk about some of the legal issues, or she'll talk about some of the medical issues. Later on, we'll hear more about some of the legal issues. And I think one of the questions that I sort of hinted at is why you tell us more about this center and what the research would be, and any of the other topics that this amazing Dr. Wafa El Sadir wants to talk about. But I do want to thank you. So go ahead, doctor. And again, thank you for always being so clear and so open to discuss this with New Yorkers. Much appreciated.
Gail, I'm sorry. I think Dr. Sadir is joining us in a few minutes. So maybe we can start with Liz Holtzman and our friends at Herrick Feinstein.
Okay, I didn't know that. So
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, the Honorable Liz Holtzman is at Herrick Feinstein and a long friend of mine, and she's going to introduce her colleague, Carol Goodman, who's the head of employment law at Herrick. And some of the issues that I think I sort of hinted at when I was introducing the doctor, but there are so many legal issues surrounding the vaccine. And like I said, I hinted at some of them. Why and when can or can't you require vaccines? Why or when can you ask people about their vaccine status? And there may not be any definitive answers, but it's certainly helpful to know what it is that is possible. I know that CUNY and SUNY, I believe, are requiring it, some of the private universities, but not the K through 12, and the list goes on. So go ahead, Honorable Liz Holtzman, and we'd love to hear from your colleague.
Thanks so much, Gail Brewer, the honorable, the most honorable, maybe I don't know how much higher I can get you, but you really belong up there in the stars. Yes, you're one of the greatest public servants in the city, and we're lucky to have you. And so when you're very able, Jessica asked me if I would help out with regard to answering these questions. I thought that I was delighted to be asked and delighted to see if I could help, but I decided that Carol Goodman, who is a partner at Herrick Feinstein and the head of our employment discrimination and employment section, and is really, really, really expert on this, would be the best person to talk to you. So I don't see Carol's face here, but I'm sure she's on.
I am here.
You are. Okay,
My
great.
camera is on, hopefully.
Wonderful.
Everyone.
Well, Carol, it's great that you could do this.
Of
And
course.
Gail, we really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm going to just turn the floor over to Carol for her to answer the questions that you may have and to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. So thank you. I have been asked a lot of these questions, mostly in the private sector, but I wrote down, why and when, and those are the questions. And while there aren't definitive answers, we do know some answers, and there are some guidelines that are evolving. The main issues that we're all wondering are really twofold. What can a business require? Can they require a proof of vaccination status? And then the second is, can they require an employee or a worker to be vaccinated to come to this place of business? And that also goes to third parties or vendors or clients. As of most recent, it was June 15th when the restrictions were lifted in New York, when New York adopted the CDC guidance. They also stated that businesses may require proof of vaccination status. The best way or the best practice to really achieve this is now we know that there's a distinction between people who are vaccinated who no longer have to wear a mask or social distance. Of course they can, but they don't have to. If you're not vaccinated, you must. So one way that businesses and workplace have been handling it is, if you don't want to wear a mask in our business, on our site, give us proof of vaccine. Give us a picture of your vaccination card. It's really the only reason one needs to have it. And we would still advise that it goes through an HR function or designated person and kept confidential to the extent possible, like a medical record. And that is in effect for businesses, but as you said at the beginning, not for pre-K to I think grade 12 or public transit, large scale indoor events. Then the second part is also in New York, and the EEOC has also declared this to be the case in the guidance. An employer can require that an employee be vaccinated before physically entering. You want to come into our offices, you have to be vaccinated. And we don't need to follow the honor system. You need to give us proof. Send it to this person, proof of vaccine, or on the Excelsior Pass. And if you don't do that, you can't come on our premise. All of this has exceptions for somebody who is disabled or has a sincerely held religious belief. So that is always going to be an exception under the ADA. But the natural response to that is, okay, well, then I won't come on premises. I'll work from home. And so now you've seen recently in the news, some companies, I think it was Morgan Stanley, maybe it was Blackstone, it was, some of the big companies, Goldman Sachs perhaps, saying you have to be vaccinated to physically enter. What's the next step? We're on site. We're open for business. If you can't enter, you can't work here. And that's the step that people are dancing around, even the big companies. And the EEOC has said, if you have a policy that you need to be on site, that's your business is open, and we are requiring vaccines to be on site. And if somebody doesn't have a religious or disability or religious belief, can you terminate them? The answer is yes, but with caution, last resort, what can you do first? So that's really where we are now. We have the one case in Texas with the nurses, and that the nurses lost that case. The court in Texas held that they could require vaccines, and if not, they would be terminated. That was, of course, a hospital. But that's the missing answer. That's not 1,000% definitive. We're open for business. Have to be vaccinated if you do not want to wear a mask. We're open for business. Come on site. You must be vaccinated. And if someone says, no, thanks, I'm staying home, you can probably terminate them. Liz and I were speaking before this about the full approval by the FDA. And there are some articles. There was one about the city in San Francisco. New York will probably follow that. Currently, the FDA has approved vaccines for emergency use, but is expected to fully approve a vaccination in the next few months. So then the question is, can New York require vaccinations for city employees, state employees, all employees? And California is getting ready to do that. So those are really the parameters. I hope I covered some of the things that everybody's thinking about, but there are a lot of nuances. I'm happy to field any questions.
I'm sure there are. That was phenomenal, Calvin and Liz Holtzman, and the most articulate, clear answer, because people ask us all the time. But there may be questions that you can either just raise your hand, or you can go ahead and ask your question. I don't know, Jessica, do you want to start it off, or Shula, and then others may jump in. There's plenty of questions to go. Can't hear you, Jessica.
So the city at some point may be able to require that all employees get vaccinated if they come to the office. And I mean, how does that work with sort of the collective bargaining agreements? And
very, very good, valid questions and points. Right now, you actually can require your employees to be vaccinated to walk inside. You can do that. And you can also require your proof of that vaccination, and you don't have to follow the honor system. There are exceptions, of course, to that. And again, if you're disabled or sincerely held religious belief, you have to think of something else. But is there more that the city or the state can do? Can they say, every worker has to get vaccinated, whether or not you're coming back in? There's such a health crisis. We are demanding that everybody be vaccinated. We don't have that here yet. Right now, it's tied to the workplace. If you want to be on site, because there's a direct threat with this pandemic, direct threat to health. You want to be on site. It's not fair to all the other people. We're requiring that you be vaccinated. We're implementing a mandatory policy. But it hasn't gone so far as to say you just have to get vaccinated whether or not you're on site. And maybe it will after the FDA has full approval. There'll probably be some challenges to that. But look, I'm with you, Gail. I would like everybody to be vaccinated. I often wonder, maybe somebody on this call knows, how did we get the seatbelt rule passed a long time ago? Or, driving under the influence, how was that passed when people were saying, I don't want to wear a seatbelt. I don't care if it's good for me. I don't know if we'll get there, perhaps, but the workplace rules are very clear, and you can absolutely mandate vaccines if you're open on site. And if employees are saying, "Oh, I've been working home remotely for 18 months, I don't need to be on site," the answer is the business will have to really say, I get that. And I know that everyone can in theory work remotely, but at some point we're going to be open, courts are open for us in our litigation department, and we're going to have to be here. So when we're going to have to be here, you have to be here, you need to be vaccinated.
That's interesting. Okay, because we have not heard that. And how about the Department of Education? Does that fall under, we're waiting for the final clearance of it's no longer an emergency, or that's not clear either?
Well, in the workplace, we're implementing mandatory vaccine policies, and some businesses can implement that for customers. But as far as the full approval by the FDA, because it's the emergency use, the only thing I can tell you is what I've read recently, very recently, which I mentioned before, which was California spoke on it. And they are at least suggesting in an article that the city could require this. I haven't seen anything like that in New York yet. Liz, have you seen anything on once the full approval by the FDA? We talked
Well,
about.
I think the military has said they're not going to require it in the military until it is fully approved by the FDA. But that doesn't mean, I think Carol's said this, that doesn't mean because there is only emergency approval that employers cannot demand it now.
Correct.
Right now, even though it's emergency approval, an employer can say, I'm open for business. You've got to show up to work in person, and you got to give me proof of vaccination to do that. And if the employee won't do it, they can be fired.
Yes, exactly.
Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. With the ADA exceptions and the everyone be careful. Because what happens often, and Liz perfectly stated, what happens sometimes is a company will say, this employee is so valuable, I'm going to let them continue teleworking, but everybody else, you're going to be fired. And don't forget the discrimination laws or favoritism, things like that. So there are considerations before you go to termination to be careful. But yeah, in theory, correct. We're on site, we're open for business, we're not teleworking anymore. You need to be vaccinated unless you show us that you are protected under the ADA.
Okay, Lori, you had a question. Did you raise your hand, Lori?
I think you're on
Lori?
mute. There you go.
There we
Here,
go.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Lori. And
Hi, thank you.
introduce yourself too, Lori. I know you, but introduce yourself so people know.
My name is Lori Boris. I'm on Community Board 8. And my question is, for consumers now, can we assume that, like, when we go to restaurants, when we go to personal services, things, hair cutters, et cetera, can we assume that everyone has been vaccinated, or is it something that we need to ask and to, demand that, they have their people vaccinated? Because it's not, do they still have a choice of wearing the mask is what I'm asking.
Great question, really. This is what we know. We as consumers, now I'll put on my consumer hat. I don't have to wear a mask, I'm vaccinated. So I can walk in anywhere without a mask. But a business is allowed to restrict more. They can require extra safety standards. They don't have to relax the rules. So you probably notice you'll go into a local drugstore and you'll see a lot of people with masks. That is either because the employee is not vaccinated or because the company just wanted to be safer. And the other thing that's come up is if only vaccinated people don't have to wear masks, and there is exceptions for people with a disability. Now, are you picking on the people with disabilities? I'm down the hall, I'm seeing someone with a mask on. Am I now outing them? I know that they're disabled. The answer is no. I mean, people wear masks to be safe. I still keep it around my wrist most of the time. I walk into a store, I'm just more comfortable putting it on. Some people are wearing it because they just don't want to be vaccinated. So I don't think we're highlighting people who might be an anti-vaxxer or disabled, but businesses are allowed to require more. And I do know that some businesses are just saying to all employees, especially at restaurants, wear the mask. This is easier. We've been doing it for a year and a half. Just wear the mask.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Lucy Sexton had a question, and then Shula Putin, and then Anat Coleman, and then I'll keep going. I see everybody else. So go ahead, Lucy.
Thanks so much. Lucy Sexton, New Yorkers for Culture and Arts, she, her. So first question, I'll just ask two and then see where you go. The first is in the chat. If we serve the public, right, an arts organization has a show, exhibit, teaching dance class, what is the legal situation in requiring vaccination for visitors, audiences, people taking those classes? And second of all, it has come up on our calls of just that it does become with certain casts and people who are doing shows and some of their cast doesn't want to be vaccinated and et cetera. And it also becomes a racial issue or a religious issue or a cultural issue. So, just trying to see how we can accommodate that without complete, judgment on people who are not willing or comfortable getting vaccinated yet.
Those are great questions. I'll try to do it in order, but look, there is a bit of an honor system. So while a company can say to their employees, no honor system, like I want proof, it's a little bit different with a visitor. So, if we're not talking about healthcare, nursing homes, the indoor events that the restrictions are still in place, but your example, let's say in a dance class, you really can only control your employees. So you can, as a business, say, employees, you have to do this. You don't have to do this. The theory being that if one is vaccinated, and I buy into the medical guidance out there, which personally I do, I'm protected. So it shouldn't matter if I'm in close contact with someone who's not vaccinated. If someone's not vaccinated, they have to continue to social distance. Honor system. So the best practice is if I own that company and I have people coming in and out for theater or something like that, is to require proof of vaccines if people do not want to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. That's what the New York says. But if you don't want to wear a mask, you have to give me proof. I think it's a little tricky with third parties. They may say, I don't want to give you proof, but you can say, I don't want you in here if I don't have proof because I need to protect everybody here. So it's always tied to the mask. Nobody wants to wear masks, so they usually give proof and they show that. Madison Square Garden was the first. They put up when the Excelsior Pass came out, negative test or proof of a vaccine, or you can't even walk in. And as far as the racial issue that you brought up and identifying people who may not be vaccinated, it is a problem. But I still think that there are so many people who are wearing masks, even if they're vaccinated, that there may not be that stigma, but we should watch out for that. A lot of employers have asked me that. What about bullying or comments? I mean, in no way should I be walking down the hall right now in my law firm and saying, why are you wearing a mask? Why aren't you vaccinated? What's the matter with you? I can't do that. You just can't. You can't ask people. HR can ask because they have a reason. We still have to just be respectful. And there are many, many reasons that people wear masks. They just feel more comfortable. And like I said, I do that sometimes too. But we should
Carol,
watch out for the stigma. Yeah.
Can I just add one point?
Of course.
And maybe you could comment on it. But if a person has a sincere religious reason for not wearing a mask or getting a vaccination, or just not getting the vaccination, or the person is disabled, let's say they will be further injured by they can't take the vaccination because it's dangerous to their health for some reason. Does there have to be a reasonable accommodation for those employees?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
Great. Those. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion on that. And what's the burden of proof? Do they really, how deep do they have to prove that they have a reasonable religious belief? They don't have to go very far. You almost accept it. There's a bit of back and forth, but unless the company is going to be go through an undue hardship. Hospitals, right? I have a religious belief I'm not going to get vaccinated. There's probably going to be a different interest there. In our law firm, I would say that we would just say, if you have a religious belief, wear a mask. You can also assign someone a different shift or to work in a different area. Those are different reasonable accommodations that the EEOC came up with. But the most important one is if wear a mask, social distance. If they can't wear a mask, they may have to telework.
Okay. Shula?
Sure. Thank you so much, Gail.
Hi.
And thank you for covering so thoroughly all of this. My question is about community boards and also other appointed bodies that our office works with, whether community boards, CABs, at hospitals or culturals. The people who are appointed to those boards don't have employee relationships, but are now, especially with the change of open meetings law, supposed to be may have meetings that they're supposed to go to in person. So I guess my first question about vaccination and masking. In addition to that, we also know that a lot of those bodies utilize maybe hospitals or nonprofits or private institutional space meetings that might also have their own restrictions, for example, for their own employees or for people utilizing their space. So how do they navigate those?
I mean, carefully, I would say you can always require masks. That's the easy one. You know, if anybody here is, I still go to a physical therapist. I don't ever look at that as a hospital. Wear masks. Every single person in there is wearing a mask, and I'm still getting my temperature taken. So those rules still apply. And you can always say in a community board, we want to be the safest as possible. Everyone wear a mask, or honor system. And you buy in. Again, if I'm vaccinated and I know I'm vaccinated, I'm protected. The people who aren't, they're the ones at risk. And if they don't wear a mask, they're probably going to get sick. So either require more than you have to, or know that the people who are vaccinated are medically protected. But there are restrictions you can put in place and require proof of vaccination if you don't want to be unmasked. But it's not in an open forum with a lot of people coming in. I would venture to guess that you're not going to be going through, please give us proof as you walk in. Although, we do it. I mean, with the Excelsior Pass, it's pretty easy. So you can just put it on your phone and say, come on in, we're going to scan it. And if you show it to us, you don't have to social distance. If you don't show it to us, we don't care if you're vaccinated or not, but if you don't show it to us, you have to stand over there and you have to wear a mask. Strange. I mean, it's a little strange. You're segregating, but it's legal.
That's very helpful, Carol.
It's not protected class yet for the vaccine status.
Anat, you had a question? Coleman, go ahead. Where's Anat? Anat Coleman are you still there? All right, then we'll go to, let's see, Elizabeth Kay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I want to bring up, I think there are a lot of inconsistencies.
Elizabeth, say where you're from. I know, but go ahead.
I'm from Manhattan Community Board 1.
Right.
And I have a question because I do have a physical disability that you kind of can't miss. So people who know me in person are very clear that I have one. And I spent my career in healthcare. I have no understanding why disabled are exempt. I don't get it at all. To me, it's just another con job that people who just don't want to get it. And it's a convenient way of saying, I can't, when in fact, that's not reality. But also the bigger concern, there are people, for instance, I know on my board that have, I don't know about the organ transplants, but I know people who have multiple myeloma and other cancers that have been in the actual studies where they're measuring, are they building up antibodies in response to their vaccines, and have found that no, they are not. So they are fully vaccinated. They have proof they're fully vaccinated. They happen to know they have zero protection from that vaccination. The question gets to be, how much do you feel that you need to protect the other people in closed spaces like a community board? So the community is bigger than that. And I don't like the stigma of people won't even get on elevators with me because like, oh, you're disabled, we have to protect you. It's like, there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's nothing different about me.
Very, really, really valid points. I should go into this a little deeper because you're so right. A disability has to be related to the vaccine. And I don't have the experience you have, and I'm not in the medical profession, but the only situation I've come across where it made sense to me was an employee who had an allergic reaction to the vaccine and couldn't get the second shot because it was such a violent reaction, and was trying to figure out another way to navigate that. Short of that, I also have trouble coming up with what would be the medical reason.
There
Now
are many.
pregnancy also, you also disability, religious, and pregnancy is in there as well. So, those are the disabilities that are coming up. If it's a different kind of disability, it shouldn't be an exemption to the vaccine. It's supposed to be related to the vaccine.
No,
Yeah,
in fact, in some,
Carol,
they
this
have
is-
shown, sorry, they have shown in some pregnant women that their children were born with an immune response because of the mother getting vaccinated. So
Yeah, the example I wanted to give is,
Right.
actually, this is a friend of mine has been diagnosed with a kind of rare blood clotting
Okay.
potentiality. And so this vaccine creates some clotting issues, and she's been prohibited by the doctor from getting the vaccine because it would threaten her life. So I think that's the kind of
Great example.
disability that you're talking about, Carol. If
I am.
I mean, I've got arthritis in my arm and I can't write. Well, that does not related to the COVID situation, and not the reason that I can't get a vaccine. So I think, as Carol said, the health exemption has to be one that's related to the vaccine. And if you can't get the vaccine because of some health condition, that's what qualifies. But
Okay. That makes
Correct. I think I agree with that. And look, I'll defer to the medical profession on this, but I could see there being some sort of gray areas. Maybe that's a doctor's note that says this person has, I'm making this up, this heart condition. And I imagine there are situations where you can have doctor's notes and an employer would be concerned, to deny it. But I would recommend that back and forth that we always do with reasonable accommodations with disability. What is it? What can we do? Back and forth interaction to see if that's really the accommodation that's necessary.
That's helpful. I think what Elizabeth is stating is that the disabled get stigmatized already, and so this could add to it. And so we want to make sure that we're talking about a disability like Liz's friend that's related.
Absolutely.
So that's the only thing. All right, I want to keep going because there's so many questions. Shirley Gutman, Alexa Hirsch, and Monique Hardin Cordero. So Shirley, go ahead and say I know where you're from, but if you could say.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Shirley Gutman from Mariah Senior Center. I thank you so much for hosting this amazing talk. It is so important, and it's going to address so many questions that we all have. I'm particularly interested, obviously, in how this affects my senior center and our ability to ask seniors if they are vaccinated and not, and for the purpose of streamlining services and streamlining screenings. And there are certain activities that I hesitate, high touch activities, things like that, that I hesitate to offer to non-vaccinateds, but I'd be willing to offer to vaccinateds. Am I allowed to ask so that if you're vaccinated, you can do an abbreviated health screening on your entry to the senior center? It would speed things up. Am I allowed to have, I know it's a lot of different questions, but maybe just so you understand where I'm going. Right now, we have socially distanced seating. Could I say that if you are vaccinated, you can sit closer together? We can put more vaccinateds at a table. There's so many questions I have. I could have vaccinated seating, unvaccinated seating. Is that allowed? I know it's allowed in certain sports stadiums, but there's really no directives for senior centers, and it's complicating our lives in so many ways.
That is complicating factor, because if it was a community center as opposed to a senior center, it's a lot easier. In everything we've been talking about, someone's coming in to a community center, and if they, again, don't want to wear a mask, they would show proof of a vaccine card. They'd have to bring it with them, and you'd make sure, it's one of the 3 vaccines and 2 weeks have passed and all that. And if they don't choose to show you that, they would have to social distance and wear a mask. Where I'm getting stuck, and maybe this isn't a problem. If it's related in any way to a healthcare facility or a nursing home or a senior living facility, it might be different.
We're not a senior living, we are a senior, like a day center. They come for congregate meals and they come for activities. So
Carol, it's like a community center, basically. It's like
it's a community center for age 60 and above only.
So that would fall under everything we've been talking about, that you're allowed. The better way to say it is not are you vaccinated or not, but the rules are you must social distance and you must wear a mask unless you show me your vaccine card. And so everybody know ahead of time, bring it. Otherwise, we are going to require social distancing, masks, and any other requirements. You can put all the old restrictions on. The social distancing is some of them, but the sanitizing, all of that. And it's just a more positive way to incentivize people to come in willingly and say, here's my card. But New York says you can be a little more, you can implement a policy that's a little harsher to say you must be vaccinated in order to enter. But then you're going to have to go through all of the unless, are there exceptions? So the better practice is to say, here's our rule. Everybody has to put all the masks on, 2 masks, a shield, whatever you want, social distance, sit at their own table, unless we have proof of that card. And if we do, we can lighten those restrictions. You get more answers that way, I have found.
Very helpful.
I would love a copy of this recording if that would be something that we could, and can we get it to the Department of the Aging as well? Because it's not the direction we're being given from them.
What did they say?
We will.
Yeah.
We will circulate
So
it.
much.
Okay, Alexa, go ahead, Hirsch.
Hi, my name is Alexa. I am a representative of Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright's office. I'm an intern. I'm a college student at Barnard College. I'm a rising junior. Sorry, wow. But my question is, you mentioned Madison Square Garden a bit earlier, and you mentioned the protocol for a negative COVID test. My boyfriend and I, we lived together. My boyfriend was, he tested positive December 31st, 2020. And I live with him. We live in a tiny apartment. We share water bottles, we kiss, whatever. We touch, obviously. And I didn't test positive until 4 days after.
Yeah.
Even though I was most likely still contagious. So how does a negative COVID test operate how does it mean anything when?
Yeah. Once the restrictions were lifted in June 15th, I think, I'm not sure that they're still asking for either the vaccine or the negative testing. I would have to look that up. It might have changed since June 15th, but I'm going to answer your question. It doesn't. And the doctor who's going to be speaking next will probably give a lot more detail on that. And if I'm correct, we can all still get COVID even though we're vaccinated. So, with everything I've said, if you're in the workplace and you happen to get a test and you're positive, you still have to tell the employer. They still are going to have to contact trace, notify people who may have to get a test. So it's not foolproof. My understanding, though, is simply that now that the restrictions are loosened and you show that you're vaccinated plus the 2 weeks, we just don't have to wear a mask or social distance. Not much more has happened other than that.
And
That's really the main thing.
We won't die. That's the other nice part of it too.
That's true. I understand that to be the case too.
Sort of a nice aspect to it. All right. Thank you, Alexa. You made Liz Holzman happy. She liked that you were here.
Thank you.
I can tell. I know her very
Congratulations
well.
in being an upcoming junior.
Exactly. Liz was very happy.
Gail,
Monique,
hi. Yes,
go ahead.
thank you, Gail. And Alexa, go Barnard. Anyway, my name is Monique Hardin Cordero, recently appointed second VP of Community Board 9 in Manhattan. And I was a
And I
little.
see her everywhere. She goes everywhere. Go ahead, Monique.
Yes, I am very busy and trying to get around and be among the people. So I was a little late, Carol, in terms of your opening comments, but I did write 2 things: honor system ? And then, of course, inconsistency. So I heard you say a lot of stuff, and then I guess one thing was said, and then of course it seemed like there was an exception to that rule. I guess my question is this: just like the subway, we're all mandated to wear a mask,
Yes.
even if you're vaccinated, and and I'm vaccinated, and I have a mask with
Yes.
me no matter where I go. So I thought I heard you say, and you could correct me, that a private employer can I guess, ratchet up or kind of decide what kind of rules they want their employees to have in terms of coming into the office, and either they prove they're vaccinated or they can't come in. So you could correct me if I'm
Sure.
saying that wrong. And so that's a private employer. Then I'm thinking about the example that was mentioned with the, what is it, Board of Ed or any city employee. Is it mandated that they have to get vaccinated or no? And so that's the other question.
Yeah.
And then it's just very confusing. That's
It
all.
is. It is. Let me go back to basics. Here are the two things we know, and then we sort of interpret them. A business can require proof of vaccination status. You can require that as a condition to not wearing a mask. So a business can say, if you don't want to wear a mask, please provide proof of vaccination to the human resource person who will keep it confidential. So that's one. That's a definite. Second is an employer may require that an employee who's physically entering be vaccinated, subject to a reasonable accommodation for disability, a reasonably related disability, or religious belief. Those are the two things we know. So the way, and you can implement a mandatory policy that you must be vaccinated, but it's supposed to be tied to coming into the office. So I can't go so far as to say everybody who works at my company, even if you work from home, I think it's the right thing to do to be vaccinated. Go get vaccinated or you're fired. I can't do that. What I can do is say, if you want to come on my floor today or in my building, in this building, I'm worried about my employees and I want to protect my guests and my employees. So I am going to require proof of vaccination or you must wear a mask. So those are really the two things. It's the New York adhering to CDC. We can require proof of vaccine status. We can require if you physically enter, you must be vaccinated, subject to the reasonable accommodation. We have not gotten to the next step, which there is some articles on it, whether or not once there's full approval by the FDA, other than emergency status, can you just plain require it? And that we've not gotten there yet. Does that help?
That helps. Now with the city employees, for example, can the city mandate that their employees, because they're opening up, should be vaccinated because they provide a vital service, as do other employees, but I'm using the city as an example.
They can require, not really. What they can do is require, if you want to take advantage of loosened restrictions, you must show us you're vaccinated. They could go a little farther. If you want to work in our building, you must be vaccinated unless you're disabled. And then they could go another step. You must be in the building in order to retain your job because your on-site presence is required, but it has to be required. So we have an on-site presence that's required. We're back. We can't work remotely effectively anymore. There are going to be very few exceptions to this. Mandatory policy must be back. And in order to walk in the door, you must be vaccinated. I know it's a little bit of roundabout way of getting there. That's how you can get there.
Yeah, and we don't know, I don't know enough about the union contracts, but that's a different topic. That's something.
Well, it is a different topic. It is. And it also will ultimately be, is your business at home or do you have to be back? Yep. And many union workers are probably been back for some time. So, there is a distinction. People have been back since the beginning of this whole pandemic, but there's some companies that are still remote.
Okay. I want to thank you very much, both Liz Holtzman and Carol Goodman, because we have the doctor on, and I know like everybody else has to go for another meeting.
Thank you for the opportunity and the questions, everybody.
You're fabulous. You're just
thank you. Thank you, Gail. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Carol. She was great.
She was fabulous. So now I want to ask our very star for our Dr. Wafa El-Tadir, who's been with us before. I don't think you heard us, Doctor, say great things about you in the past, but thank you for always joining us. And I think hopefully Trisha will tell you that we appreciate all of your time. So why don't you just talk a little bit about your new research center, and then if you want to add anything about the variant, which is on people's mind. And again, thank you for always being so supportive.
Hi, Borough President Brewer. Hi, this is Lofton Flowers. I'm so sorry to tell you that I just had a note from Dr. Alsader that she had to hop off onto another
Okay.
emergency meeting.
Okay.
She was very, very apologetic and
No
hopes
problem.
that she will have a chance to come back at the next meeting and give everybody an update. I'm really, really sorry about
It's
that.
okay. We didn't know the timing on it, so I'm sorry too. Nobody was clear about that.
Not at all. She very much hopes to come to the next meeting,
We'll
and
come to the next
we'll be sure that she's available.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Jessica, what do you want to have other questions, or what do you want to do on this?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has anything else that we want to discuss, I'm sorry about the timing of that. But so, yeah, if there's anyone else has anything you want to raise, any announcements, I have one announcement, if we just want to in general, about from the Department of Health, which said that at the East Harlem Action Center, where vaccination rates have been going down a little bit, they have just started offering the Pfizer vaccine there. So they're trying to get more people to come.
Okay.
But I don't know if other people have announcements as well.
All right, that's very helpful. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. Tracy, did you have something?
Hi, thank you, Borough President. I just wanted to ask, I know that we're not getting the medical overview of the Delta variant. I understand. I just wanted to raise the concern that we're not really hearing anything from the state health department about the Delta variant or any reference to the World Health Organization's report on Friday about the need for mask wearing. So I guess I just wanted to raise that as a question. Is it on anyone else's mind? You know, I'm a parent of a young unvaccinated child, and so I personally am concerned about people who are still vulnerable to this. And I just wondered why we aren't, as a city and state, talking more about the Delta variant and preparing accordingly.
All right. I know, unfortunately, it's my fault because I didn't know her time frame, but Dr. Cedar knows all about it. But it's my fault because I didn't know she was under that time frame. So I apologize. You might have to
I
wait.
mean, even the officials, like, I feel like we're not getting any announcements from the health department, city or state.
So
And
maybe
I wondered
you and I should make figure out what we're going to do, maybe in a letter form of all the elected officials to the state. We'd be glad to work on that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other questions anybody has? I know, Miriam, you had a question, Miriam Cologne, but I think it's somewhat got answered about group activities to older adults. But I think you got an answer when others asked, when Julie asked something similar.
Julie asked something similar because we're both up there in North Manhattan. I
Right.
work for Isabella Nork, and yeah, we haven't gotten real clear direction. It's a little confusing because we do know that a lot of our older adults have gotten vaccinated, but we know that there may be others that have been skeptical and have been hesitant, and yet they want, we want to be very careful when we invite them for a group activity, and we don't want to put anyone at risk, especially now with the variants. And we do know that even with the vaccine, there's still risk. So there is some concern, yeah. But I did get that.
I thought
Thank
it was a good answer that Carol Goodman gave you, which is, you're welcome here, but if you're not vaccinated, you need to have a mask and socially distance. A positive as opposed to we do
Right,
not
right.
want to, which is
Yeah,
different. It was very good.
thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we can wait till next week, and we'll have probably the doctor on just to answer some of those questions, but also talk more about some of the budget issues, particularly if the city council has passed the budget. And I cannot tell you how upset we are with some of the issues that are happening, but good to have a discussion. And John Gallagher, I like you when you just walk around with your mask, and when you go indoors, I put it on. That's what I do. And I think that's better because then there's no stigma for the people who have to wear it because they are not able for whatever reason to get vaccinated. So I do the same thing. And I walk around with extra masks for the yo-yos, knuckleheads who don't seem to have one or broke it or whatever. So I have that for them. There's always some knuckleheads around somewhere. So I do that too. Okay.
And he'd be a great governor.
No way, John Gallagher. Okay, anything else, Jessica or Sheila? Carol Goodman, you were great. Liz Holzman, you were fabulous. Really, you gave people hope. Why don't you just take over the whole city? That would be nice.
Will they be sending us this recording?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we will.
Thank you.
we sent it out to
Yeah,
everyone.
everyone look for the guidance. It changes every so often, very often, actually.
Thank you, Carol. That was great.
Very helpful.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
Thank you. All right, Jessica,
you.
anything else or?
No, I think we're good. And we do have some folks in Columbia on the call. They're going to bring the questions back to Dr. Al-Sadir. So hopefully next week she can answer everyone's
All right.
questions.
But that was so helpful to everybody. We just a
Right.
whole new
Yes,
breadth of information. Thank you all. See you next
Take care,
week.
everyone. Bye-bye.
thanks. Bye.